And we're live. You are watching Coaching Chats with Marina and Caroline.
I'm Marina Baranowski of the Coaching Marina.
And I am Caroline Day with Safe Data Change. How are you, my friend?
Very well, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. I can't believe it's the 19th episode.
19th.
This is really exciting. We've
But
talked about
yeah,
relationships, we've talked about, family, how we met, like how we started. We've talked about so many topics here. I'm just so grateful to be here with you. We've talked about gratitude.
as I have for you. Yes.
One of the episodes that we had. And I think it's so good to talk about, topics that it can be so relatable to other people, especially if we're talking here on, on YouTube, our channel. But today it's even more so in terms of relatability because I think people will be able to relate at least to one of the many examples we're going to give today because the topic is
Limiting beliefs.
limiting
So
beliefs.
tell me, what is that?
Limiting beliefs to me is the belief that you have that is preventing you from growth. So
Mm,
it's really just any limiting belief that you keeping you exactly where you are and making you unable to move forward in whatever way that is.
yeah.
So how about you? What do you think limiting belief
A
is?
limiting belief really equates to conclusions that we formed some way along the line in your lifetime that we now treat as a real fact. And because sometimes they feel true, but that doesn't mean that they are true.
Right. Yes. Therefore, beliefs, right? So
Right.
beliefs are things that you form in your brain as reality. So you form it in your mind as truth, therefore beliefs, right? But those were things that we learned from other people, from society, from upbringing. Those are things that we learned from, just observing other people,
Right.
you know? And so because we learned from something or someone and we accept it as truth, it becomes a belief. Yeah. Thank you for
Exactly.
exactly for clarifying that a little bit better. So we're going to cover a few limiting beliefs here. We're going to talk about at least 10 different beliefs today
Okay.
and what that means. So, because I think, for example, like there are a lot of them that we're going to, there's so many limiting beliefs out there. People do truly believe as the truth to many of the things we're going to cover today. And our point today is just to challenge that, right? Just as we have. I know Marina and I have challenged many limiting beliefs in our own lives. And today we're going to give some specific examples of that. But this is also to urge you, our audience and our listeners, to also do the same. If you do have this belief, to today, if you're listening, to just challenge that, to really just listen because is it really true? Like today we're really challenging them and saying, is it really true? So the first one we're going to talk about is the limiting belief. It's too late for me.
Yes.
Have you had that belief before?
Of course. When you're dealing with age, sometimes that creeps in quite often. So for example, if you are over 50, picking up, let's just say, heavy weights. It's too late for me to get into lifting this. I'm too old to do that. Or it's too late for me to become, more of myself because I've had too much stuff in the past that is going to impede. There's always in the background. Either that it's too late because of age, too late because you've passed the age that you think, or maybe it's just too late because there's not enough time left.
Yeah, age for sure is one of the attributes to this limiting belief.
Absolutely.
I understand, yes, at 50 for sure. I can only imagine, right, that people do assume that. But I also believe it could be much earlier than that.
Absolutely.
There's people that are in their 30s or even late 20s that are saying it's too late for me to change the career because I've been in this career for over 10 years now. And what does it mean for me to change? It's too late for me to make a jump, thinking that they're old and they're only in their late, 20s or early 30s. Or when women are approaching a certain age, they start worrying about having kids. It's too late for me because I'm over the age of 35, thinking that, this, well, obviously there are medical, scientific things as to why women become more concerned over the age of 35, but still every person is unique and it can be different for everyone, right? And so definitely age is a thing that people normally tend to standardize,
Yeah.
right? This is the age to change, this is the age to travel and do things, this is the age to dance and have fun. And when you're out of that norm that they have established for the age range, all of a sudden people feel a certain way when they're out of that norm range, right? So if you're out of that range, then all of a sudden you feel like it's too late for you. If people are traveling in their 20s and you're 45, it's too late for me to be traveling. I should have traveled when I was in my 20s. Now I have to take care of my family. If
Right.
you're supposed to be exercising, in your 20s and your 30s, if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, or 70s, you think, oh no, that's way too late for me. I should be starting when I was in my 20s. I'm 62. Like, why should I start exercising now? It makes no sense. Everything hurts. And then, so because of age and the age norms that society have imposed upon us, all of a sudden we're judging because we have accepted that belief as truth.
That is very true.
Yeah.
I love the example that you used when it comes to career, because that was something that it happened to me. I'm approaching 50 and changing up my entire structure of what I was doing in life. I spent nearly 30 years in the finance industry to me to go, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to switch it and I'm now going to choose to be what I feel most called to. Was a very difficult decision to make. And I had to challenge my limiting belief that I was one, too old, that it was too late to make a change like that. I've had all of this experience beforehand, and now how am I going to change this whole thing up? You have to challenge those limiting beliefs because it is possible.
Absolutely. I love your example because it happens to a lot of people that are changing their careers,
Yeah.
right? They're afraid not only that they're not going to be accepted because they're just starting.
Yeah.
We see ourselves as beginners no matter where we are. But the beauty about changing, when you already have so many years of experience, is that you're never going to start from the beginning. So I would say that that's underneath another limiting belief that tends to feed into the first one.
Yeah.
And it is too late for me to start. And here's another belief as to why. Here's the evidence. It's because I will be a beginner.
Right.
And at my age, for me to even learn things are a lot harder than someone in their 20s or 30s. And so you have all of these like little pieces of what you call evidence to confirm the first limiting beliefs, when in reality, they're just supporting the limiting beliefs with other limiting beliefs.
Yes. That's perfect. Exactly. Exactly.
Absolutely.
I love
And
that.
where do you think that comes from? Like, why do you think that people say it's too late for me?
A lot of this internal noise, a lot of this is from from certain past experiences, whether it be through childhood or maybe it was one instance, that happened that you're like, this happened and That is my proof that that's the truth. Instead of challenging it over and over again to see if it actually is the truth. We internalize so much, a lot of stuff that we don't even realize that we do. So a lot of these beliefs are, like you said, societal. There's certain time frames that you need to do it. Some of it is just childhood messaging that we heard from, whether it be our parents or the people that we're around. Um, Sometimes it's from repeated like criticisms or just expectations, that we have for ourselves or for the people around us that encapsulate and hold in all the things that, we can really experience in this life.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with you. There's definitely the in childhood, depending on how your upbringing was. If your parents were the type of people that said that at home, I'm not going to start this because it's too late, you'll learn that very early on. But there are also parents that are saying it's never late to start anything,
Very
right? And
good.
so depending on what you hear is what you're going to learn. I learned very recently, per Dr. Joe Dispenza, that up until you're approximately 12, not the same for everybody, but approximately, and when you're around 12 years old, up until then, everything you hear is the truth. It's not like you have not developed your cognitive skills to discern things or even to challenge it. So if
Right,
your parents are saying, it's too late for you to do something, it's too late for me to start, you're going to learn that as the truth.
right,
Or if you go to school and you do things like, it's too late for you to do whatever, right? Then they will learn that. And so that's one way, right? It's really up on your upbringing, learning from the people that are around you, your guardians, your grandparents, your community where you live, your teachers. So they're always like kind of shaping your limiting beliefs in a way. And so if they're constantly saying it's too late for me to start anything, it's going to, even if you don't believe it, when you do grow up and it's time to make a change, you will at least remember, like I remember someone that said it's too late. Like, why is it not too late for me? And so you take that with you. Another reason is fear. So when people feel afraid of change, they will rely on something that feels safer.
yes,
So it's too late for me means I can stay in my comfort zone right here. I don't have to move. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to make this change because it's too risky and I'm afraid. And so I can use what I've learned from society or elsewhere that it's too late for me. So I don't even have to start
right.
because it's confirming
And
my fear.
exactly, I mean, what are you afraid of? What that little bit of pain that you get from starting something or potentially failing or have a rejection of some sort. You're trying to avoid that little pain point that may seem like a big giant lake, but it's really a puddle. Like you just don't want to you want to avoid that pain. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And then you use it's too late for me.
Too late.
You
It's too
don't
late. I don't want to do that. I don't want to cross that. I don't want to do that because, there's the potential. The risk, is too great for me to do it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about another one,
Okay.
which is, and I'm looking at our notes here because I want to make sure that we follow. So that's just how I am.
Yes.
Look at that.
I hear this one a lot. I hear this one a lot. So for example, I grew up in New York, and there is a certain way that New Yorkers are. That's just how I am. I'm from New York, or, I am always I'm just trying to give one practical one, which, really could be I'm I'm late all the time. That's just how I am. right? That's just how I am. So everyone, you condition everyone around you for that behavior. I fly off the handle, all the time. That's just how I am. I use that one a lot personally for certain family members. That's just how they are. And you convince yourself that um that is what they're about, and so you just accept it. Same way with self. This is just how I am is just a way to allow yourself that thing, whatever it is, that quirk that you have. That's just how I am. Even then, not caring on what it does to the people around you. You don't want to hear that it's a bad thing. You just become this thing. And that
Mm,
is part of the that's just how I am
yeah. I
category.
love that example because actually you said so much in just a little bit that you
Sorry.
no, that's great. That you there's a lot of power in everything you said. The first thing that you said was that's just how I am, and the example that you gave is I'm always late. That's just how I am,
Yeah.
right? So we take something that we most of us call it even like a flaw,
Mhm.
right? And in order to again prevent you from changing, you accept it and you take it as truth. It's just how I am.
Right.
Then you also said you do that for others. That's
Yes.
just how they are.
Right.
That's a little bit different because when you're talking about other people, those are people you cannot control. However, I like the example you gave because we say that so much, right? That's just how they are. I cannot change them.
Yeah.
And then when you say that's just how I am, I cannot change that.
Yes.
There's truth to one side and not necessarily truth to the other
It's
because
evidence. It's your evidence that you can do that for yourself.
yep,
If you're doing that for others, it's now becomes something that allows you to do that for yourself.
yeah, however, you cannot really change anybody
No.
else, right? You can't control what other people are saying. You can't control whether they will change or not change.
Right.
But that's not necessarily true for ourselves. We do
Right.
have control over ourselves. Although people don't believe that sometimes. They say, no, I'm telling you, I am like that. I can't change. I've tried. This is just who I am.
Right.
And there are certain traits in us, right, that comes from it's inherently, right? Traits that we get from our parents, from, and our abilities sometimes is very ingrained in ourselves in a way that people have tried to write with the right, but they're really left-handed,
Right.
right? And so there are things that are like that. However, people also has a belief that they can't change.
Right.
So that actually helps you because it's confirming. When your body confirms something, it doesn't want to do something different, right? And so when you think this is just how I am and I can't change, even when you're trying to change, if you have not changed your nervous system to believe that that change is possible, you will continue to see evidence around you that the opposite is not true. And
Right.
then you go back to, but that's just how I am. For for example, people that feel like they're bad with money.
That's a
If they
good one.
say that's just how I am, and they say, no, I want to be better with money. I really want to be better with money. This year, I'm going to change. I'm going to be better with money. And then they try. They try to learn. They try so many things, but their nervous system only knows I'm not good with money. And it doesn't matter what you say, which is why a lot of people don't like affirmations. It doesn't matter how many times you say I'm a millionaire, if your body doesn't believe it, if you're in your core, you're like, but are you?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. Like if you don't change your nervous system to believe that you are good with money, if you don't start making changes to what you say when something goes bad, because as soon as something goes bad, you say, see, I'm not good with money. You confirm, as opposed to you could have said something like, that happened again, and that's part of my past.
Right.
My future does not align with this, which is so hard to do, right? We'll talk about this in a little bit
Yes,
after we talk.
okay.
But the reality is, belief is not in just what we say, is what we teach our bodies.
Yeah.
And when we say things, but our body does not believe it, that's still not believing. And I think that's why it's so hard to change limiting beliefs. But that's definitely one that we can talk about it for an hour
Oh
is
my gosh, right. And we're talking about alignment, right? You're talking about, your body, your mind, your spirit, all of it needs to be aligned for it to come to fruition. And that's really, you need to embody the whole thing, but you're doing that already by saying, I'm not good with money. Your body, your mind, the whole thing believes it, and thus it becomes true. We have an easier way for some reason with us humans is that we have an easier way to believe something negative than we do to believe something that's positive. And that comes, and again, I'm sure that there's a lot of research and a lot of doctors we can quote here, but there's definitely something to that. This is the limiting beliefs that we have really do come from this, like you said, evidence that we get throughout our lives. And honestly, it could be just one thing. It could have been one experience, and that becomes the truth. You had mentioned earlier about, Dr. Joe Dispenza, explaining within the, 9 to 12-year-old range. That happens a lot. One experience turns into the truth, and then that gets carried on and through. So, as we get older, we need to start challenging those things, those
absolutely.
ideas, and those thoughts.
Yeah. Let's go back to something that you said that was very powerful about people tend to have limiting beliefs towards flaws or things that are considered not great, right?
Yeah,
Versus things that are good,
yeah,
because, it's so much easier to believe something that is just a flaw and is just what you have
yeah,
versus something that is good. However, we know also, right, that it is just as possible. If you're telling yourself and you're truly believing this is just the way I am, there is a possibility out there that is completely true that this is just who you are now, which
yeah,
can be completely different than what you were as a person. So, if you do believe in something that you've inherited that is bad, I shake all the time, I cannot cook, that's just who I am. And just as much as you believe that, there is a possibility that it's just who you are as a cook, or the ability to cook is available. It's just, it's like you said, it's so hard to believe something positive. And I think that's also societal, right? We say a lot more of these beliefs out loud as a joke all the time with friends, with family, things that we have seen before, that we have accepted as the truth. Then why not accept it as truth, something that is good for you, right? Or even when it is true, let's say that people are really smart.
yeah.
You don't see people saying openly, I'm so smart, that's just who I am. They're not comfortable saying that. You
No.
hear a lot more like, I'm not good at skating. That's just not who I was never good with balance. That's just not who I am. As opposed to, you don't hear people saying, I'm so great at, you know, whatever. That's just who I am. And I wish there was more of that.
Why not? Why aren't we saying that more
Yeah.
often? A
Yeah.
lot of that I feel has to do with the possibility of having someone else reject the thought. back to us. You're
Mhm.
not smart, or, you're not good at that, or, so we tend to not do that. We tend to highlight the things that we firmly believe is true on the negative side, almost as I need more evidence of this for the confirmation for someone to go, yeah, you are. Like, yeah, you're terrible at that. It's more comfortable to do that than is to get the confirmation that you're good at something.
Yeah. And it's uncomfortable for other people. It's more
Yes.
uncomfortable for you to hear something good coming in with confidence from someone else than otherwise, right? Because if somebody says, I am so good at this, it's just who I am, people are going to call him out on, you're cocky, you're full of yourself. Why
Yeah,
you're talking like that? Because it's so
absolutely.
uncomfortable even for other people to receive. But it's much easier for people to receive the opposite,
Right.
right? Very interesting. So,
Very. Yes.
yeah. All right. So let's cover the third one.
Okay.
Um, well, I'm going to talk briefly about the third one that we wrote. It says, I need more certifications before I start. That
Yes.
actually goes into the first one. It's too late for me because
Yeah.
people think that they need more, right? Especially if they're transitioning. If they're starting something new, they think, oh, I need more skills. I need more certification. I need more time. I need more courses. I need to be more prepared. But what they don't realize is that confidence does not come from preparation.
Right.
Confidence comes from action.
Yes.
And so you need to act, you need to actually be doing things. And the good thing about starting late, however late means to you, is that
Right.
you're not starting from the beginning. You're not. You have a lot more skills, you have a lot more experience, you have a lot more preparation than other people. You're just trying to focus the getting specialized in something new. But you've done something new. So it's not even your first time at something new. It's not your first time as a beginner. So you already start differently.
Definitely. And that reframe is perfect, especially for someone who is older, someone who's in their 40s, 50s, and above. There is a lot of life experience that you have. And that's part of the experience. So taking another certification or taking another, course, or going back to school, or whatever you think that you need, or I need to listen to that one more podcast, or I need to, listen to that one more thing in order for me to get into action, um, again, is very limiting. So, I'm glad we brought this one up for sure.
Yeah. No, you don't. The
You
truth is
don't.
you
You're
may not
right.
need
You don't.
another one, right? And the best thing to do is to try. Try it
Right.
out, but it's so hard to be vulnerable. We're
I
going to
know.
keep going because we can talk about
Yes, I know. I know. I know.
So the other one is if I speak up, people will think I'm difficult. It's a different one.
It is a different one. Speaking up in itself, and it depends on what you're speaking up. So let's just say you're talking about it within a business relationship. You're at work, you need to speak up, you want to be more assertive, but you find it very difficult to do so because you have put a limiting belief on yourself that your voice doesn't matter, or that what your ideas won't mean anything. It could be, again, from an experience that you spoke up once and it didn't get accepted. So you now think that none of what you think is going to be accepted. So that is one example of if I speak up, people will think I'm being difficult. But in the relationship one, when you're dealing with someone who you're trying to build a relationship with, the difficulty within a relationship comes from misunderstanding. So if you speak up, you do not want to be misunderstood. So you will always, or at least for the most part, if you have that limiting belief, keep your mouth shut because you don't want to be misunderstood. You don't want to be thought of as being difficult or nitpicky, or, but if something's really bothering you, it's going to stay within, and it's going to burrow and fester. So, which part of it's difficult? Being thought of as difficult or dealing with all the difficulty that it is to keep it inside?
Wow, what a powerful thing to say. In workplaces, for me, Marina, it starts way before you speak.
Yeah,
Because when you go into a place and you're new, let's say, you're watching people's body languages and the way that they talk to each other. You're reading the room, you're understanding the dynamic of your workplace, right? And somebody must have said something to you in order for you to think that you're going to be difficult to begin with, right? Or they heard someone speaking up and they heard that this person was being difficult
right,
because it doesn't come out of nowhere, right? Again, it comes back to there was at some point evidence, and this is for most, that's not every single situation, but
yeah,
for most, right? For some people, I would even say, for some people, they were either told that they were being difficult, or they heard somebody speaking up and being told that they were being difficult. And that alone creates a huge wall between you and the willingness to speak up.
right.
And if you've been challenged before at work or otherwise, you've been challenged by what you thought, you've been told that what you said doesn't make sense, it's not the truth, you're exaggerating, whatever that may be, right? That makes you feel a certain way about speaking out.
Yeah,
So I like this limiting belief or this belief because it tells you a lot more about what may or may not have happened in this person's experience. Because now it's speaking up is a problem and me becoming difficult is a problem. There's two in one, right? Like if I speak up, I will be difficult, right? And so you're correlating the two. So I must not speak up because if I speak up, it's not safe,
right.
right? And so there's so much again in that one belief, right? Why would you consider what would it mean to feel difficult? What does it mean when somebody tells you you're being difficult? Are you challenging them? Are you challenging the status quo? Are you challenging the system? Are you not challenging anything and they're perceiving as challenge? Right? And so all of these have really deep wounds. And so by not speaking up, I'm safe. If I speak up, I'm no longer safe
Yeah,
because now they're going to attack my character, right? When you say people will think I'm difficult, now it's attacking your character.
right.
Like you said, you're the one who is difficult, not what's going on in front of us, not the system, but me, right? I will feel a certain way about myself. And how many people, right, comes to us thinking the same thing
Absolutely.
or even avoiding
Right.
conversations because they don't feel safe and they feel like they will be difficult, whatever that may be. What does that mean to you? Like when you feel like people may think that you're being difficult, what is it that you're normally presenting when
It's the challenge. This is the difficulty that we're talking about. It is the challenge. So if you say something that is what you deem difficulty, that means that the other person may have a rebuttal, something that is going to make you feel that what your opinion is, whatever it is that you had said, there's something wrong with it. And that you are constantly being challenged in that is the difficulty. That why is this person, why, the other person saying to you, this, you said it, and now you're not going to understand. This is a terrible thing to say. You're being very difficult. You're being challenging. You're challenging my thing, and you don't want to have that same energy back at you. So this difficulty really is a challenge more than anything else. You don't want to be challenged.
Why? What's the hardest thing about being challenged?
There's a pain there with being challenged. You don't want to be told that you're wrong. You don't want to be told that what your idea is or what you're feeling, or maybe it is something that you're feeling and that you've expressed it, that it would be challenged and there's something wrong with it. So you avoid it. And that's within the avoidance, it stops being a challenge, and then you avoid, being deemed difficult. Like you said, it's an identity. You don't want to be thought of as difficult or a person that is difficult.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I think so too. It's because it's actually going to influence it might even influence your career.
Sure.
When you're talking about a workplace and you're the one to speak up, it takes a lot of courage to do
Yep.
that because if somebody will deem you as difficult, it can actually translate in other areas of your work.
Right.
People are watching. Well, other people think you're difficult because this one person thinks I'm difficult.
Right.
And so it's deeper than just the immediate pain because there is a different reaction when it's one-on-one versus there's 10 people in the room,
Right.
right? Like if you're a one-on-one, somebody's telling you you're difficult, that's one opinion. When somebody's telling in front of 10 people, 20 people, 50 people, then it's no longer your opinion. Now you're creating opinions for other people about me. And that can be very harsh, right? And so, yeah, you're right. There's so many pain points to that. But mostly, it's an interpretation of someone who can actually have an impact on your own interpretation of yourself.
Absolutely.
Even if the
Yes.
challenge that you're speaking up about is not about the person you're talking to, but they're feeling attacked. As an former EH&S manager, it happens so often to me because I would always have to challenge the safety of either the system or the safety of the environment, of the safety of the employees. And when I challenged the safety, the person who was in charge of operations, the person who was in charge of the building, the person who was in charge of the people, in some ways felt attacked
Of course.
because they feel like they are protecting them the best they can. And so for somebody to point it out, it feels uncomfortable. And so you are deemed as difficult when you're in situations where you have to talk about the different level of tolerance in safety, in risk, right? Like what people accept as, okay, other people might not.
Yeah.
Or what you know about risks may be different than what other people know about risk. And so presenting something that is different than what the other person knows can be very challenging for them to receive. And depending on how you speak, it can actually translate it as a complete challenge, a complete, audacious, behavior or whatnot. And so it is very difficult because you may see something as you're bringing up as a good thing. Or if you speak up, you're actually helping someone. If you're speaking up, you're protecting something. But if it's not received as that, then it can come back as, you know, you're stopping the operation, you're stopping the job, you're stopping us from essentially making money, you're stopping us from doing something that is way more important, depending on what it is, right?
And this is a business thing, right? So you're acting in a business capacity, but people are taking it so personally. So there is the distinction that it is a problem sometimes, especially in the workplace, where we take things so personally and to heart when this really is just a business action. And if we can separate the two and say and see what it really is, especially in your former line of work, this is a safety thing. This isn't saying that I'm personally attacking you and saying that this is, you are being unsafe because you, the person, like this is a business thing. And if we could reframe it and look at it from a different perspective, we might be able to accept things more. But immediately, because of our whether it be upbringing or just one thing after another that has led to this limiting belief, we are taking it so personally.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know a lot of people will can totally speak
Oh,
on.
yes.
And then because of that, the reality is when you're not able to speak up because you don't feel safe, you feel like if you do speak up, you're going to feel attacked,
Yeah.
then or that you're going to be deemed difficult, then you don't speak up, and then things don't happen the way that would probably be better. Not just me as a safety person, but like anybody who doesn't speak up in a meeting, they are really stopping progress. You could
Yeah.
have changed something that could have been better, that could have added advantage, that could have added, a different perspective that other people are possibly thinking too. How many times, right? Like when somebody speaks up, another person goes, "Yeah, I was going to ask that."
Yeah.
But nobody's talking about it. But then once you bring it up, everybody brings it up, right? Like, or some of them agree. And so there's so much value in speaking up. This belief is just so sad to think, right?
Yeah.
Because now, because you're trying to defend yourself, you're not allowing your wisdom to be released and teach other people. You're not allowing your skills
Yeah.
to be spoken.
No, I'm glad we brought that one up for sure.
Yeah.
That's a good
So
one.
the next one is you have to choose between success and love.
Uh,
Do you believe that?
I don't. I certainly don't. I don't think we need to choose, between success and love. I think love encapsulates every part of our life. So, especially in what we choose to do, I think that we both lead with love in order to be successful, especially in the coaching business. So there are examples, that I have seen and evidence that I have seen that is not the case. You can have both success and love.
Absolutely. So tell us about the opposite. So when do people think that love and success don't go together?
Well, love in the context of, let's just say, a relationship, having a deep relationship with someone. We're talking really about the amount of time and energy that you put into something. So, in order to be successful, the limiting belief there would be that I need to spend every waking moment on this venture in order to be successful, and I'm not going to have enough time to devote to the love portion of my life. And a lot of people do that. They spend all of their time on their career, on their success ventures, and don't even have time or think that there isn't enough time for the love piece.
Yeah. And you're right. There's so many people that have chosen intentionally,
Sure.
I'm going to dedicate 100% of my energy onto love and 100% or 100% of my energy onto success.
Right.
And they do become successful at whatever they want to say. And by the way, I like what you said at first, which is let's separate what success and love is here. I think
Yeah.
this limiting belief has to do with probably even like career and relationships, right?
Right.
Because success, you can be successful in relationships.
Absolutely.
But I think this was more like I cannot choose between success and love. If I have love, then I'm not successful. I think that's more like into like the career part of it.
Right.
So I cannot have financial success or I cannot have like career success because I dedicate 100% to love or vice versa. And the truth is, again, it goes back to the evidence. We have seen again and again people that have dedicated 100% of their energy into doing something, their purpose in life, launching a rocket ship, whatever that may be, like
Yeah.
putting in, on Amazon,
Yeah, right.
and you dedicate every single minute to, your career versus you dedicate 100% of your energy to your relationships. And we have seen success in both, right? In people that dedicate 100% here or 100% there, which is the right thing to do. At the end of the day, everything you do that you put in 100% of your energy, you're going to be successful at it, right? But because people see as one person having intentionally decided to dedicate their time to doing something, whatever it is that they want to do, even if it's like acrobats, right? To dedicate so many hours because they want to be on the circus, it's their love and they dream of doing this and they spend hours and hours and hours and they become successful because they dedicated 100% of their energy. People see the evidence that people dedicated 100%, and then they think to themselves, I have to do the same. And I think that that's the limiting belief, right? It's not necessarily that that's not true or not true. I think that statement can be is an honest truth, right? Like it can be, it has portions of truth because you can choose, but do you have to choose? You don't have to choose. People have chosen to do these things and have been successful.
Yeah,
But other people have also proven to give 100% of allocated time to career and love and have been successful at both.
absolutely. And that's true. I mean, when you're dealing with the concept of time, so if you're working from 9 to 5 and you do 100% of that time putting it towards your business, let's just say, and then when you're home from the evening, till the morning, you dedicate 100% of your time to your love or your relationship, that's 100% on both angles. You're just, what are you dedicating your time to? So it really is all comes down to choice. By limiting yourself to saying, I can't have both, then you're not even choosing to do it. You're choosing that it's not even an option to
Right.
explore it.
Yeah. If you say I have to choose between one or the other, then you believe that you can't have both.
Right.
But if you say I can choose to allocate my time
Right.
to certain things, then I can actually have success in everything that I put my mind into.
Absolutely.
But that's a belief, right? And if you keep on looking up to other people who have chosen differently and you think that that's the choice, see, they're successful. I have to choose between one or the other. No, they chose to
Right.
have one or the other, or they chose one more than the other and lost one, which can happen.
It does. Yes.
Then it's your choice to do it. And sometimes there is no evidence of what you want. And I think because you don't have evidence of what you want, a lot of people believe it's not possible.
Right.
You really have to be a pioneer sometimes. You need to be the first person in your family. You need to be the first person to ever do something. But it doesn't mean it's not possible. It just
Right.
means you haven't seen it. There is no evidence yet, but you can become that evidence. But you first have to believe that it's possible, that you can choose, right? That you can choose success in everything that you do because there's also evidence on that, right? There's now so many books on, I love Outlier because it explains that you have to have like 10,000 hours of something will make you an expert. And that's, it sounds like it's a lot, but really isn't if if you calculate it throughout a year, throughout 2 years, throughout 3 years, you know? And so if you allocated time to dedicate 100% of your time on things, you can be successful. And I think, I mean, we both went to the Jay Shetty certification school,
Right.
and we can even give Jay Shetty as an example of this, right? He takes allocated time. And if you think of his week, you would think, oh, he doesn't dedicate it to maybe family because his week is, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
But the way that he frames it is really like maybe a month, or maybe a quarter. In this quarter, this is how I'm going to allocate my time. I'm going to go on a tour for 30 days and I'm going to take, you know, 20 hours of meditation after that. And then I'm going to go on vacation for this amount of time. And so it doesn't have to be the way you see it, the way you see it on TV, the way you see it in front of yourself, the way you see it in front of others. You can actually make it work in a way that will work for you and your partners and the people that you work with.
Absolutely. There's a will, there's a way, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I love that. All right, so let's go to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, we have, and a lot of these can be framed in the same way. So, I mean, based on it's that ch conscious choice that we make every single day to take a look at whether it be the time, the energy, whatever we're going into it. But go ahead, let's go on to the next one. I love these. Go ahead.
Yeah, if I slow down, everything will fall apart.
That's a big one.
Why?
That's the big one. I deal with a lot of that, especially within a crossroad situation, because you're constantly on the go. If I take a pause for a moment and rethink everything that's going on around me, then I'm something's gonna happen, something's gonna fall apart, my world is gonna shatter, everything is not going to be the same. I'm gonna have to it's almost like the chaos that you're living in right now is more of a comfort than the potential of change. And so by slowing down and breathing and taking a pause is scary, because then you actually have to look at things more closely and under a microscope, and that is a big deal. Big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had this belief for a long time, my friend. If
Tell
I slow
me.
down, everything will fall apart. For me, and I didn't know. By the way, I had this belief, and I truly didn't know that I had this belief. It was very subconsciously like in there. It was ingrained in there, and I didn't know why. Because for me, I wanted to achieve something and I would work really hard to get it. And as soon as I got it, I would immediately move on to the next thing. And then I would move on to the next thing. I want to get the next certification, and then I will get the next certification,
Yeah.
and then I will move on to get the next thing. So I remember like graduating, with a chemical engineering degree and going, okay, what's next? Like, what do I have to? Oh, okay, I want to get a job at this place. And what do I have to learn to get a job at this place? Okay, then I'm going to take this course. And then I just kept going. And I remember somebody once telling me, do you ever celebrate your accomplishments?
Huge.
It doesn't seem like you give yourself time to celebrate your accomplishment. As soon as you accomplish it, it's like it was nothing. And then you move on to the next one. And that
Yeah.
was when it was almost like an awakening. I was like, no, I never do. I just, I keep going. Like that's just life. And it was, like when I started to like challenge. I mean, I had people around me, like that really helped me stop and start challenging my own beliefs because I was always on the go. I was always like, when there's more, like, can I get more? How do I take more? How do I go up the ladder? How do I do this? It was always go, go, go. Don't slow down. You will fall behind if you slow down.
Yeah.
And I remember reading the book Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Love her. And she's talking about her and her wife. So her wife, Abby, very famous soccer player, in the book, she's talking about how her wife goes on for weeks practicing for soccer, practicing for the championship. But when in her days off, she's lying down on the couch in the middle of the day taking a nap. Like, and I'm talking about like a long nap. And that used to bother Glennon so much. She's like, we should be doing things around the house and she's sleeping, you know, like you need to go, you need to do things. And in the book, it's written so well. I mean, she's a great author. I'd highly recommend, but she talks about how her belief that she had even from when she was a child, it was almost like they were not allowed to rest, especially in the middle of the day. Like, what are you doing? You need to be doing homework. You need to be doing this. You need to be doing that. And then subconsciously, it's like, it's not okay to rest.
Yeah.
It's not okay to take a pause. And so she was projecting her own belief onto Abby. Like, hey, what are you doing? Like, why are you slouching on the couch? Why are you on the couch all the time? It was bothering her because it was against what she had learned was the norm. The norm is you don't take naps. Otherwise, like you have to do things. You have to go. You have to, you know, it's 2 in the afternoon. Like, what are you doing? And so I think this is so powerful, because it was like me. It was like I never allowed myself to rest. And the more I read, the more I learned, and obviously the more I changed in my own life, what I realized is that rest is fundamental for growth. It's fundamental for you to have these allocated times to do and having these allocated times to rest so that your brain can actually process everything that you have learned. You
Yeah.
dedicated 100% of the time to do something. It's actually better if you let your brain process things. In fact, when you do coaching or when you do even like therapy, when it's really intense, that 1 hour that you do, they say, hey, go home, take a lot of water or make sure that you like take a nap because it's a lot to process. You have
Yeah.
a lot up.
Mental, physical, for sure. Yeah. No, it is a huge deal, and it's a great example too. The resting thing, and especially for me, was something that I dealt with. It is the guilt of sitting down when you have a monstrous list to do was gigantic for me. I've learned to rest now, that listening to my body was more important than that monster list that I have. It's going to be there and I'll get to it for sure. But if my body is telling me that it is time to rest, I'm going to want to listen to that. And especially like you'd said, whether it be a coaching session or a therapy session, and you aren't taking it in, well, you need to encapsulate that within your body, mind, and soul for it to take root. In the example that you had said about just going, you accomplish one thing, you go on to the next thing, it almost becomes, and tell me if this resonates, but you're not feeling what's happening. So you're always in the doing, but you're not experiencing the things that are happening around you. You're just always going to this goal, but you're not bringing it in. You're not enjoying the moments. You're always in the future and not in the present.
Absolutely. And I always thought, that that's what he meant to have fun because people say it's not the destination, it's the way there, right? And so I always thought, oh no, like I'm having fun while I'm doing it. So I don't need to celebrate anything. I can actually like finish and continue. So even like you use things that you learn as evidence when in fact that's not what that is for.
Right. Right.
That's not what
Right.
that saying is for. That saying is for people that are only thinking, like how do I get there?
Yeah.
Not thinking of the path. I agree that you may have fun in the path, but when you do achieve something, like take it in, like you
Take it
said.
in
Yeah, I
for
love that.
sure.
Yeah.
Ooh, let's see.
So
What do we got next?
the next one is I can't make money doing what I love.
That's a lie. A lie. And I know we say this because we spoke about this earlier. Like the immediate thing that came into my head is like as an artist, the starving artist. It is a trope, right? It is something that we, heard. So anything within the arts, people are like, well, if I'm doing this out of a love for this, there's no way I can make money out of it. And that's obviously not the case at all, because there are many artists that actually do make money, and whether it be through music or through painting or sculpture or whatever sort of, creative, there's ways to make money there. Also, for if something resonates with you so deeply that you are called to it in the way that, like, I'm called to this. You're called to this. This is something that, burrows under your skin. And that could be for anything, any passion that you have. If you have a passion for something, there is always a way to find and make money. But where does that begin? And then it comes from, and a lot of this is that you have got evidence that there are ways to say people don't make money doing things that they love. And you take it as a fact, you take it as truth instead
Yeah.
of finding out for yourself and gathering that evidence for yourself.
So let's break it down. So what does it mean to make money?
Making money, obviously, we're talking about financial stability, financial independence. This world kind of is run on this making money thing. We need money in order to live. These are just, things that we have to deal with. But so making money in itself is compensation for a thing that you're doing.
Right.
And
But you always get compensation for the things that you're doing. Or, like when somebody does a service or they're employed somewhere, they get compensation. I don't think that that's what I can't make money doing this means. Making money here is a large amount. Usually, when somebody says, I can't make money doing this, it's not necessarily like I can't get compensated for it, right? It's just the limiting belief is that you cannot make as much money as someone who is in a corporate job. You cannot make as much money
a
as
living wage.
over 6K, like
Right.
over 100K. You're going to live in below your means.
Right.
You're not going to have advantages that other people have with a larger amount of money. So we're talking about money bracket here. When we talk about money, it's not necessarily getting compensated. People do get $10 an hour in this
You're
country,
right.
right?
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
And so it's not just making money. When I say you can't make money doing what you
It's
love,
like money. It's like
what they
enough to
mean is
live,
really
enough to
whatever
be
is
comfortable.
whatever number they believe is sufficient for you to
Yes.
live a really good
Yes.
life,
Yeah.
right? And so where do you first hear that?
From for in my experience, it is the money dialogue that happened during your life. So it could start very, very simply when in your family. We don't make a lot of money, or we're broke, or we're poor, so we can't have these things. So these are just these beliefs that get ingrained in you as a fact. I'm poor. I am, don't make a lot of money, or we're these kind of people that don't make a lot of money because we live in this certain place. There's very limiting discussions about this within your family dynamic. It could be something that is, and again, you might have evidence of it. You might see it within your family that there isn't a lot of money there. However, that is because those are the choices that these people have made for one reason or another. And it doesn't have to be your reality. It
But what do
is,
you mean? Sorry. What do you mean by you can see that they didn't make a lot of money? What does a lot of money mean?
it could simply be, and again, these are your own ideas of what that means. So from an individual basis, it just may mean, keeping the lights on, or having enough food in your house. Or it could mean we didn't have, a pool in our backyard. We didn't, we live in this affluent neighborhood and we just didn't have enough money to have, where I can go to soccer lessons. Like it just depends on that individual's experience in life and where they have limited themselves in. because of whatever was being discussed within that dynamic growing up, and that they carried through. And that goes with a lot of these limiting beliefs. It
Yeah.
may be your own experience. Goes back to I'm not good with money. It goes back to um, just things that what you in your experience you may not have learned, or the choices that you make have not been um in the affirmative yet.
Yeah. There's two examples here, right? Like that at least that I can think of when it comes to you can make money doing what you love is what is this amount of money that people normally perceive as making money? I love your example for that you gave, which was I don't have a pool. Some
Yeah,
people think you've made it if you have a backyard and you have a nice pool in the backyard.
right,
That's the money that they're talking about. You're not going to make money. You're not going to have a house with a pool doing what you love.
right.
And the example of that is when you see a lot of evidence of people that are, doing businesses and hating their job, speaking openly about how they hate their job or not, people that are in the finance industry that are just in sales and
Yeah,
they're making a lot of money. And if you see them, they're like miserable. They don't love the job that they're doing, but they're doing it because it makes money. And we're talking about the money that gives you multiple sources of income. It gives you multiple houses. It gives you traveling, opportunities to travel the world, opportunity to do extra curriculum activities, like do whatever you want to do. And so that's the money that people normally see when you're saying you can't make money doing what you love.
right,
There's that evidence, right, of people that are making or doing something they don't necessarily love, but they're making lots of money and therefore they're being successful in one area because they're focusing on that, right?
right,
They're not necessarily in love or they're not focusing their energy in love, but they're focusing their energy in career. And that's not what they love, but they're making money. So we have lots and lots of evidence of people that are in businesses, not doing what they love and making money. So that's the first evidence. They are taking the vacations, they are doing the things. And then there's the evidence where people are talking about doing what they love. I didn't make any money the first year when I became a coach, when I became a singer. I used to play in the park and get about $20 a day. And that was literally just enough for me to eat. So we see the other reality. People really struggling of making a living as an actor, as a carpenter, as whatever, right? And their examples are I loved what I did, but I wasn't making any money. I was living in my sister's couch. I was doing, like I was getting nothing. And so when people listen to that, right, they have two examples in their lives that they see all the time and they go, well, do you want to do what you love and not be able to buy anything and live in someone else's couch? Or do you want to not do what you love, but be able to finance trips and be able to put your kid in sports and piano and this and that? It's your choice. And then people grow up with this
right,
belief that I can only have one or the other. I can't have both.
right,
I think that that's really the belief there. And also nobody talks about timing. Nobody tells you. The belief is not you can't make money doing what you love in the first 3 years. Nobody says that. Everybody just says you can't make money doing what you love,
right,
period. And they're not really looking at a timeline. Yeah, maybe you won't. Maybe you literally won't make any money. I love the story of Rebel Wilson. If you have a chance, she was in Bridesmaids, and then she did Pitch Perfect 1, 2, and 3, I think. And she's talking about how she was really very poor when she moved to LA, not making any money as an actor. And she did Bridesmaids, but it didn't air until a year later. And she was living on top ramen. like very, limiting until Bridesmaids came out. And out of that, a few scenes that she was in, and she's really funny, she got the part to do Pitch Perfect, and it
Right.
changed her
Changed your
life.
whole life. Yeah.
And so we have so many examples of that. People that really was not making a lot of money and had to struggle in the beginning, but they continued and they became exceptional at what
Yeah.
they love, you know. But that's the limiting belief. The limiting belief is in this time right now that you can't follow what you love because you're not going to make money.
Right.
That could be true for the next 3 months. That actually may be truth, right? And so they take that as a belief that is truth in general,
Right.
but
Right.
it's not true. Like this is a very temporary situation if you really work on it, right? If you really develop what you need to develop, if you really do the work. But then again, it goes back to confidence.
Yeah.
People are waiting to get confidence. They're waiting to feel confident about doing something that they love when they need to be doing the thing in order to
Yeah.
gain confidence.
Exactly.
Doesn't come before the other.
I love that. And you're talking about so black and white in a statement, instead of it being one gray or two, that there isn't just two options here. It isn't like you do it or you don't. It is there's a middle ground that, still has to be explored and that comes with action. That's where that middle ground comes from. It's by the doing, seeing, what you can accomplish by doing the things, that you love.
100%. Yeah. So yeah, we can
So,
make money
yeah.
doing what we love. It's just when you love something really a lot and you don't give up on it, you know, and you have to believe it. Your body has to believe it
Yeah,
that you can do it. You have to do the work, you know,
definitely.
and you have to show people that you love. There is a difference in watching people doing what they love as opposed to doing something. And actually, you can do both. You can do something you don't love while you're developing the skills to do something that you do love.
Yes.
That when you exchange, there's a lot of people that have also done that.
Yeah.
I know coaches that as soon as they started making exactly the same amount of money that they were making in their 9 to 5, they quit the 9 to 5 and they start, doing the
Right.
business full time. And so it's nothing is impossible, like so just believing in one thing already is so limiting.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All
So
right.
how to wrap this up, how can our viewers really start to notice and understand when a limiting belief is coming up for them?
Oh, that depends, right? Because it depends on the limiting belief. I
Yeah.
think one thing is important is get access to information.
Yeah.
I would even say now with technology, AI, ChatGPT,
Hmm.
you can actually utilize this technology to say, these are my beliefs,
Yeah.
challenge them. Like what would be the opposing, And I have done that actually very recently. I said, I have this belief. What would be the opposing narrative? To see if there is an opposing narrative to what you believe.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of value in discovering what will be a completely different perspective. And sometimes we don't know what that perspective is.
Very
So
true.
do it intentionally to challenge yourself to what it is that you believe. Because most times, we're not aware of some limiting beliefs that we have until we put ourselves out there. There has to be vulnerability. If you don't have radical honesty, if you don't say, this is what's coming up for me, I'm not worthy, I don't feel worthy, I don't feel like I'm good with money, I don't feel like I can sell a product, I don't feel like I can sell a package. You have to be completely honest to get a complete response,
Yeah.
right? And so it has to start somewhere. How can we identify that we have it? I don't think that sometimes we can. Sometimes it's really by putting ourselves out there, doing some exercises, because there are so many exercises out there. I run a webinar called Stop Living at War with Yourself that talks about that. People not knowing their values and then doing an exercising and go, oh wow, like apparently I'm really value X, Y, and Z. I didn't even know, but it's like right in front of me, and I'm whether I like it or not, this is what I'm spending time on, And so being aware of these beliefs of ours, good or bad,
Yeah.
I think is really, really important. And seeking to find them, seek awareness more than, knowing or not knowing what the belief is, seek awareness to learn about them would be what I would say.
And your webinar is amazing for that. I mean, it does do that, challenge you, to open up the thought process. So I highly recommend. But you're in that challenge, it is understanding and also catching some things when you're saying it or when you're feeling it. A lot of the times, sometimes it's like, when you say, I always do something, why do you always do something? So and a lot of us can go, I there's something there. Why do I say that I always do something? What taught me that? How about, I never, do this because of whatever. Like, so when you start hearing yourself saying those things or saying can't, the word can't is a big one that definitely shows a limiting belief. That is like the limiting belief word. And how about shouldn't or should, do something? Like these are words that when you start listening to yourself, once you start examining your thought processes, that you can go, okay, wait, let's challenge that thought. Why is that the case? So, that's probably where I would say I would start.
Yeah, that's such a great way to start. Thank you for pointing that out. I say that a lot. I think it's because, in leadership, you say, I should do this, or you should do this, or we should do this.
Yeah.
And I say a lot of should. And then when I catch myself, I go, oh, I said I should, like where you should, or, and so I agree with you. I think challenging even these like permanent remarks that we make. Is
Definitely.
it really permanent? Is it really something that is forever or never? And I love that you point that out because it's so important for people to see. And it's such a great way to start because it's so small,
Yeah.
right? So if I can't do that, or, I can't, finish this, or I can't do this project, or I can't apply. I can't get an internship, or I can't get promoted. I can't talk to my boss about promotion,
Yeah.
because sometimes when you say can't, it just feels so scary
Yeah.
at first, and so far away from your reality that it's just like, I can't. It's so far, I can't.
Yeah.
But it's really just so far that you can't see that you can.
Right. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you.
All right. Well, this was beautiful. I know we kind of rushed through six but if you guys do want to talk about other limiting beliefs, we can do a part two. Let us know.
Yes, for
I think
sure.
there's so many limiting beliefs that we can talk about, and it's so important to cover it. If you have any questions for us, Marina is the coaching Marina at Instagram. I'm at Save Data Change on Instagram. Come talk to us. Have a lovely week. Thanks for staying with us. We'll see you next time. Bye, Marina.